Hello, BCA 9. I hope you're doing well. We are in week 8 of distance learning. And this week, I want us to focus and just reinforce the concept and idea of what it means to analyze something, albeit a traditional text, a non traditional text. It could be song lyrics, it could be photographs, it could be paintings, it could be just a concept or an idea. So, um, I would like us to complete the activities I have in this Google Cloud submission. And I think some of the information may look familiar because we did work on some of this last semester, but I'm taking a different approach and I've made some additions. Okay, so hop along for the ride and let's give it a go. All right, so analysis. So the learning goal is to define and reinforce the importance of analyzing an idea or concept and or text, traditional and non-traditional. So a traditional text would be right, an article from a newspaper, a magazine. It could be something from literature. Whereas a non traditional text could be song lyrics, it could be a painting, it could be a photo. All right. The task and instructions just listen and following to the audio clip here that I've provided for this activity. Okay, so what is number one? What is this analysis they keep talking about? Now, again, I want to give props for those that have been doing really well in analyzing, examining something more closely with a given text. We've been working on analyzing throughout the school year, and I'd say even more so second semester. Um, for those that are still, struggling, it's okay. Forgive yourself, if you will. Give yourself a break. But I wanted to take this different approach for you to say, oh, okay, maybe this is making a little bit more sense. I just got to keep practicing because you're going to be analyzing other pieces of text in English 10, English 11, English 12, and then beyond, and of course in other classes. Did I just mention that? I may have, but it bears repeating. Anyway, so highlighted in yellow. To analyze something means to study it deeply and critically by separating it into its components or elements. In other words, is taking parts of something and breaking it down, looking at it closely, almost um, uh, taking a microscope and looking it through a particular lens. So, what I'd like you to do is just pause right now and read the definition to yourself and just internalize what it is saying. Okay, now that you had a moment to do that, here's an example. Okay, it's not in the form of a question, but it's not asking, but it's stating, analyze what is causing stress in your life. Some examples, and these are general examples that can cause stress in anyone's life: death of a loved one, chronic illness or injury, mental health illness or disorder. Okay, so what I'd like you to do, all right, in the blue highlighted area here, is to identify stressors in your life right now. Okay, or if you don't want to take, if you want to take more of an objective viewpoint, just identify stressors in a person's life. That might be a little bit more manageable. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and complete um, one Roman numeral one right here. So once you have done that, we're going to go back to the stressor that you identified in either your life or just life in general. Okay. So we're going to back burner that. Let's go to number 2. So what is the importance of analyzing something? Highlighted in purple. Read it to yourself. Read it out loud. In order to understand problems and concerns, it is important to generate possible solutions and a plan or plans of action for the greater good of an individual, group, or maybe society or culture. Okay. Now, the second highlighted blue area, what are some other important features of analyzing something? In other words, why else is it important to analyze something? All right. So when you get to this part, fill in 1 and 2. Okay. Once you're done with that, you're going to mosey on down to number 3, where you're going to watch a little video. And it's a video of a professor out of Canada who talks about why it is important to analyze something. He talks about breaking things down into parts, and you'll see that. The video is fewer than 3 minutes. I will say this, he does use a curse word, not a curse word, but he does cuss, but it's nothing too terrible or jarring, okay? He provides some examples of analyzing. So when you get to this point, you're going to click on the link and you'll click here and it'll open up in a new tab. After watching the video, either in bullet point list or in complete sentences, you choose what is the gist or main idea of his presentation on analyzing. Okay. And you are going to generate your response right here. Okay. When you're done with that, 4 has 2 parts, 4A and 4B. All right. So I said, hey, put on the back burner a stressor that you've identified, a stressor in someone's life, okay, or in your life. So now we're going to bring that from the back burner to the front, okay? And I provide an example, all right? A stressor that I've identified is depression. All right, we talked about depression with the book Speak, so I geared up for this example. So what I did here is I took the concept of depression, right, and identified the parts of a concept or a text in order to examine the parts closely. So what I did, right, I took some important and pertinent parts of depression and I've identified them, right? The first one I said, protect myself from constant negative emotions. Drain from fighting a war in my head all the time, the constant going back and forth, back and forth. It makes a person less engaged in the present moment and becomes emotionally distant and social withdrawal. Okay. And again, I just created a list here, all right, of identifying parts of depression, because then I want to take these parts here and examine them closely. All right. And so in that case, the second row is to analyze these parts. And I've created a guiding question. What do these parts say about the quality of life while living with depression? Okay. So I've taken these parts I've identified of depression and then analyze them. In other words, I'm looking at them a bit closer. So what I came up with is this. When a person living with depression becomes aware that being constantly down wears on themselves as well as family and friends, he or she does not want to be a burden. Therefore, the person starts to withdraw socially because they feel putting on a fake smile and pretending to be happy around others is the only solution. When this facade becomes the day-to-day routine, they feel helpless because even putting on a fake smile is sometimes hard to do, even when they make painstaking efforts to shield themselves from the surge of negativity their brain is creating. Okay. And you'll see, and I'm just going to zoom out a little bit here. You'll see that the parts that I have identified with depression here, all right, I put them in a cohesive, free-flowing manner in which I analyzed. And again, that guiding question really helped. What do these parts say about the quality of life living with depression? Okay. Now it's your turn. So what you're going to do is scroll back up, and one of the stressors that you identified here, you're then going to choose one of them and you're going to write it here. Okay. And similar to what I did, you're going to identify the parts of that concept. Okay. So specifically, whatever that stressor is, you're going to create a bullet point list identifying the parts, much like I did here. Then you're going to analyze it. What do these parts say about the quality of life while living with? Okay, now you're going to insert what that stressor is. Okay, you may need to add a word or two to just make sure that the sentence is cohesive. Okay, but essentially, you're doing the same thing as I did in my example. Okay, so you'll take a little time and write the stressor, identify parts that make up that stressor, and then analyze it. What do the parts that you've identified say about the quality of life while living with blah, blah? Okay. This is really the first part of the exercise for this week, or I should say activity, before we get to looking at some non-traditional texts, which are in the pages below. Okay. So I'm going to get to there. Okay. And again, feel free to, pause, rewind, you know the drill. We're going to see three different non-traditional texts. Okay. Two are photographs. One is a painting. And again, they may look familiar from last semester, but again, reinforcement, reinforcement, reinforcement. The first one I've done for you. The second non-traditional text, feel free to do with someone. Maybe you can do some kind of video conference or do something on the phone. So you can collaborate with a partner on the second non-traditional text. And then the third one you're going to do on your own. So please just, make every effort with the last non-traditional text to do on your own, right? To say, okay, I'm going to try this and I'm going to make concerted efforts to do the best that I can. Okay. And the next thing I'm going to say before we get into it, that I've included all of the non-traditional texts in this document. However, if they look a little fuzzy, feel free to type the name of the text in a Google search. Okie dokie. So the first one I do, it's a text photo by the photographer of Frank Rich. This was taken on September 11, 2001. Okay. So there's two parts to this activity. And just like we did earlier, you're going to identify and then you're going to analyze. Okay. So I'm looking at this photograph, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to identify what is in this photograph. Identify the parts of this photograph before I analyze these parts. Okay. So what have I identified? I've identified that there are people, that there is a bicycle, there is a park, there's water, there's a city skyline on fire, smoke, and it's a sunny day, right? So you got the smoke, you got the skyline, you have a bike. It appears that they're in some kind of park that that's along the river. That could be the Hudson River, and you have the people, and it's a pretty bright sunny day. Okay, and they appear to be jovial. They're engaged in their conversation. I don't know. They may be unaware of what's going on behind them. Okay. So now I'm going to take these parts, right, to analyze what do these parts say about the people in the photograph. So I want to focus on the people because, yes, our eyes immediately go to the billowing smoke coming from the skyline, but what we really should be analyzing are these people, right? And their reactions to what is happening right behind them. So that's why we want to analyze what do these parts in this text say about the people. Notice I highlighted in the photograph. And this is what I came up with in my analysis. The relaxed postures of the people are contrasting to the devastation of what is happening behind them. A conclusion to draw is that the people in the photograph are heartless or unconcerned about the tragedy of September 11, 2001. It is possible that their unconcerned demeanor has been influenced by many tragedies that have struck New York City in its abundance of violence throughout history. And it's talking about New York City's history. So that's really where I would be going with the rest of my analysis. But it's a great start because I'm taking the parts of the photograph, right? And what are those parts saying about the people, right? And focusing on the skyline, the attack, the explosion, the loss of lives, right? So that's the direction where I'm heading in this particular analysis. Okay. When you scroll down to where it says partners do, this one is called Frida Kahlo Border, and you can see it is a painting. So similar to the first one, you are going to identify, all right, and if you just so when you identify what you see in the painting, just create a bullet point list and then analyze it. All right. And here, oh, something got cut off. Okay, all fixed. So you look at the painting and you identify what is in the painting, bullet point list, right? Now you're going to analyze it, right? And your guiding question is, what do these parts, the parts that you have listed here, say about how Frida Kahlo feels about these two places? Two places is highlighted there because when you look at this photograph, when you really look at it, you see that there are two places identified, right? It appears that this side of the painting is the United States of America, and that this side of the painting is Mexico. And I would say it's Mexico because Frida Kahlo was Mexican, right? So that's why you would want to focus on, okay, she's in the middle of these two places, these two cultures, these two countries. What do these parts say about what she feels about these two different locations, these two places? I hope that part made sense. Okay. But again, it's similar to what you have up here, right? We are not just focusing on what happened in New York City, but we're focusing on the people there that appear to be heartless, unconcerned, maybe desensitized of what is happening. Okay. So, same with the Frida Kahlo one, right? What is Frida Kahlo feeling about these two places? Cultures, societies? I don't know. That's where your analysis comes into focus. So again, feel free to do Frida Kahlo Border with a partner. Okay. And the last one, solo does. So that's just you. This one is just called Pig Photo. And just like the other two, you're going to identify what you see in the photo, right? And then in your analysis, your guiding question is, what do these parts say about life and death? Highlighted death, highlighted life. And so for each of these texts, you have a particular lens. You're not just looking at it as a whole and analyzing. You are looking at it through specific lenses. This one, okay, death. You see the pig there is alive. All right. So, what do these parts that you've identified say about life and death? So, this one you're looking at through the lens of life and death. This non-traditional text, you're looking at through the lens of how this painter feels about these two locations. And then the one that I did, right? The lens of what do the parts say about the people in this photograph. So the lens, looking through the lens of the people, as tragedy and destruction has occurred directly behind them. All right, folks, that should do it. I know that was rather long, but you know that I just love to talk. And yes, I know it can be wordy, but I hope that all of this kind of reinforces your understanding of analysis by taking a different approach. And for those that are still struggling, hopefully that this gives you a little bit of a boost or a kick, if you will, of taking something and analyzing. Okay. Feel free to watch this video. Again, parts of it or all of it, entirely up to you. And then once you are done with this activity, then you're just going to go back to the Canvas page and submit it. This is really going to be the main focus for this particular week. Okie dokie, folks. If you have a question, Google Meet, office hours, text, and email. Feel free to do any or all of them. All right, folks, take care.